Hey, Lab Coat Agents, it's Tristan, and thanks, Dan, for setting this up. Appreciate it, buddy. Today, we've got PR, I like to call her PR Mogul, Christine Haas, and the very first time I ever met her was at, I think it was at an event, Closing Table, I think it was. You were speaking about...
Closing Table.
Yep,
Okay.
All right, perfect. Closing Table, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And
Yep.
I was really impressed. I was super impressed with what you had to say in regards to public relations, because in real estate, we don't see that often. And one quote that always comes to mind every time I think of you is the Bill Gates quote, "If I was down to my last dollar, I'd spend it on public relations." But
right.
Look, I respect you a lot, what you've done and what you stand for. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. No, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with you guys. I love being able to have these types of conversations because everybody thinks that getting on TV and getting in the media is so difficult. And I'm here to tell you that while it does have some tricks and trades of the industry, there are ways to get on TV and to blow up your brand on your own. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity.
Well, thanks for being on. So let's get right into it. So a couple of the things that you shared at the very first time that I talked to you and the last time you were on Lab Coats were things that we could do as agents or real estate agents to be able to get PR either for free or at a very, very low cost. And I want us to start off by you giving us some advice on how to approach PR so that if we were to make it more of a routine into our daily schedule, how can we do this so that first we can do it for free and effectively? Let's start with that.
Yes. Well, I think the biggest thing, no matter whatever industry you're in, the biggest thing that we have to worry about these days is competition. There's so many people online. There's somebody out there trying to get your clients. And so the best thing that you could possibly do is to set yourself apart. The media, as you know, when you watch TV, you go, I saw that guy as an expert, and maybe you know him, you know his name or her name, and you think, they're not qualified to talk about that the way maybe somebody on a bigger level is, but it's really about the opportunity and seizing that opportunity. So yes, there are ways to get your own brand, your own name, your own expertise into the media, and it's all through by doing things that will allow you to be more credible and to get into daily stories that are trending. So for example, real estate numbers that come out monthly, sometimes in cities they release them quarterly, sometimes they release them annually. Like right now, New Year's projections are really, really good to get into the conversation. So teaming up with your local real estate organization in your city is a really good way to be able to go to the media and say, my goodness, I can talk specifically about the trends that I'm seeing in Minneapolis or Nashville or whatever, because I've got this brokerage, or I'm in the field every day and I'm watching the trends happening. And that's also for things that happen to be negative news. Sometimes you see news on the air and you think to yourself, that's not really true. I don't think that things are as bad as they seem and in that news report. So that's a way to get into a conversation with a reporter and do a follow-up story and say, you know what, I watched your story on Tuesday night that said that one part of the town is not, having the type of income or incline of sales in real estate that others have. So you would want to get into that conversation and allow them to know, number one, you watched their story. Number two, you're knowledgeable about the area. And number three, you can add value to what they did or what they reported in a different way. So I always encourage people to really, number one, be very, very educated about the media in your own city. So it really depends. I want to say, too, quickly that, if you're a realtor and you want to do a big national splash, you want to be on New York TV, which happens consistently if you want to be. You're shaking your head. You're like, yep, that's where I want to go. You want to go to New York City. You want to talk to Fox. You want to talk to CNN. You want to talk about a national scale. But there are individual or even smaller brokerages in different cities that really just want to be the name in that city. So the first thing you want to do is look at like, okay, what's my goal? Do I want to own Nashville, for example? Do I want to get on the media and be a consistent household name in Nashville? Or do I want to be on Fox News in New York City? You can achieve both, but I always suggest you start with if you've never done TV before or never done any online or media or newspaper stuff, you want to start where you're at. So you get into the circle and it becomes like a snowball. So say, for example, you're in Nashville and you get a news story out there on NBC. That is something that you can send off to the producers when you're pitching the big guys, it's at Fox or CNN or something like that. But there is power in being local. As everybody knows, if you are in your city and you are consistently seen as a real estate resource in that city, it's going to be free advertising for you. It makes you credible. It makes you a household name. It brings in leads for you, and it takes zero ad spend.
So how do we start though? Where do we find let's say I have a piece and I want to send it to an editor, or let's say I'm really great at using technology in real estate, and I want to show the consumer how they can better use technology as well. How do I say, well, look, I'm really good at this, expose me, right?
Right. So with my clients, and my camera's twisting there a little bit, sorry about that. Right. With mine, it looks like, we're on a merry-go-round. With my clients, I always identify what your goals are. So if it is just branding and exposure, look at any trending story that you can get into. If it's specifically about a certain area that you really want to hone in on, say you're a newer person in town and you really want to go after the people who are millennials or new home buyers and in a certain age bracket, I should say income bracket. Those are the things that you want to identify early on, and those are the stories you want to target. So you know how it is. You're scrolling through social media every day and you see, oh my goodness, that's something that I'm interested in because it has to do with my industry. You look for those stories that you think I have a comment on. I can talk about this, educating people about this from my own perspective. I have my own impact. So that's what you really want to do, is you want to look for those areas of stories on a daily basis that really give you that perspective of, okay, this is exactly something that's up my alley. I know I can talk about. It's really easy. I have a Facebook group for PR, and I'm trying to help entrepreneurs talk about like ways that they can get in the media. And I post this almost daily, like a great story idea of like, okay, this is a topical story on CNBC. This is the way that you can get into the conversation. So I would suggest that for real estate as well. To answer your question, is look at those news stories that are out there, whether it's Wall Street Journal, whether it's MSNBC, Cheddar, podcasts, you name it. What value can I add to that story or that subject matter? Or what angle could I provide that maybe somebody does not see? And that's really what it is. As we always know, digital marketing, you want to provide value for your clients or your customers, and that's how you keep them through content marketing. Same thing goes for the media. You want to approach the media in a way that you're educating and you're helping the reporter or the writer educate the public, as opposed to just saying, okay, hey, hi, I'm here and I want to get my branding out there. It's never about you. It's about your client. It's about your customer. But then you become the guide, as Donald Miller would say through StoryBrand. You become the guide. You are the expert, and you are able to translate that education to the reporter, and then you are featured as the expert. So to answer your question in a nutshell, look for great stories that you feel like you can get into. Look for the stories that you know that you have a different angle on. I also say with mortgages too, even if you're not a mortgage broker, you still can get into that financial conversation about economics because you see it through the eyes of your own clients or customers. You're walking it through. You might be not necessarily a mortgage broker, but you're watching the pain points that they're going through. So you can talk about those things as an expert as well.
All right. So you mentioned a couple of things that I want to touch on there. Number one, you have a Facebook group where you help out people.
I do.
What's the name of that group
Yes.
so we can join?
It's called Media Max Out. So MEDIA MAX Out, OUT. And if you just go to my Facebook page, I think I have to accept people coming into the group. So it's Christine Haas. But we've got about 100 members now. We just started a couple weeks ago. And so what I do is I post daily different ideas of ways to get into the media, all for free.
I love that. Awesome. That's cool. Good job on that. Number
Thank
two
Thank
is
you.
you said when you're approaching, I take notes on the way here. So
No, I appreciate it.
you said when you're approaching media, these media outlets, you want to come with a story, something that obviously you're really good at.
Yes.
You don't want to approach it with, hey, look, I'm amazing. Put me in, right?
Right.
So, but who do we contact? Do we just grab the editor
Yes.
of the real estate section, or what do we do?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm developing a course right now, as I told you earlier, to basically help people navigate how to find the right person and the resource so that they can do it on their own. But in a nutshell, it's different for every different type of media. So for example, if you are in TV, you're going to look for different opportunities that might work for you. I always say, you know, my background is in TV. I used to be in the news for 15 years, and so I was an anchor and investigative reporter. And so I come to the table from PR perspective about how to serve the media through their own eyes. You don't want to make their job any harder. If you can make it easier for them, the story becomes much easier for you to get on TV. So for example, a reporter, if you're approaching them for the evening news, you want to make sure that you have yourself as the expert, but you also want to have a client or a customer, however you want to term it, who is also able to be kind of the victim, as I call it. So we always want to have the victim or the feature person that we follow and the expert in the story. And the last component that is really necessary is making sure that you tell the reporter that you have B-roll opportunities. So for example, if the latest story is the housing trends in your community and that type of statistic that's out there about what's happening and what's translating in your community, you're going to talk to the reporter and say, I want to tell you about the housing trends that I see. Maybe it's East Nashville. I'm seeing a boom in millennials. I can tell you from my perspective and my business, the numbers that I have on camera. I also will have a client or a customer that has just purchased a home or is currently looking for a home that would be available for interview as well. So of course you want to do your legwork. You want to make sure that that person is available prior to the time that you're pitching the story, but you want to have all of these packaged up in like a little bow. You want to also understand from a reporter's perspective that they are doing 2 to 3 stories, sometimes a day. So that means the easier that they can do all of this in one location, the higher the chance is that they're going to take your story because it's making their job and their life easier. So if you're available at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, if they're an evening or afternoon reporter, and your client is available at the same time with you, and you have B-roll available of walking through a home or something of that nature, even if it's at your office, but you have some kind of video purpose for that, that story is going to sell like hotcakes. And I really tell you that this is really the situation for the media these days. Part of the reason why I formed my own PR business and got out of the media is because the game has changed so much because of social media. Everybody's competing with whatever's on social media, and that includes somebody holding up an iPhone and recording the news. So you really have to understand that there is so much out there to do that you, sorry, my phone was twisting again. There's so much out there to do for the media, and it easily can translate for you to be on the evening news. However, if you don't have a client or a customer or any of that B-roll or anything like that, you want to look for morning show opportunities. Those are where you see you're sipping your coffee and you see somebody being interviewed in the studio. If you don't have B-roll and you don't have a client and you just want to be featured as an expert, that is the type of thing that you wanted to pitch a morning show producer for. So there's different types of media. Probably the lowest hanging fruit or the easiest thing that you can do if you're just getting started in media is guest posting. So guest posting is like Thrive Global, Huffington Post, those types of outlets that are very large in platform. They have opportunities where you can write your own article. And so there's submission guidelines on those websites. But if you go to those websites, you look for, you can even Google guest post media, and you will come up with, and I have this in the program that I'm launching, is a list of 1,000 different types of sources for guest posting, which is completely free for you. The only legwork that you have to do is write the article and get it out there, get it through the submission guidelines, and all of a sudden you are a published author. So it's pretty exciting if you want to do that. I always say, if you're really new to this whole thing and you just want to get your name out there, how do I do it? I'm really kind of intimidated by reporters and all this other stuff. Guest post is the first opportunity.
That's awesome.
Second opportunity, in my opinion, yeah, and podcast too. Podcasts are very, as you know, very easy to start. You want to start with a smaller viewer base, of course, because you want to get your start and then start to look for larger opportunities. But first one would be guest posts. Second one would be podcasts. Third one would be online outlets where you're pitching reporters. I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but there's another website called HARO, H-A-R-O, Help a Reporter Out. And that is a component of a company called Cision. Cision is a resource for all of us in PR, where we spend $10,000 to $20,000 a year to get basically a Rolodex of every reporter outlet in the country. It's a really great resource for us to be able to have emails and that type of thing. However, they have a free service called HARO, and what they do is all you have to do is subscribe, and you say you want to be, a content producer or a feature on one of the articles. They send out 2 emails a day, and it's a list of all the reporters, podcasts, you name it. Some of them are even like New York City media, asking for specific stories and angles for it. So there's deadlines listed. If you get the email, you might find something that completely is up your alley. You just, basically fill out the information to the T of what they want. They might say, I want 2 sentences about this, and you might be quoting the Wall Street Journal from it. Or it could be a blog. The options are endless, but it's a really great way for free to start looking for ways to get your own media.
That's awesome. I love that. So we had another question. People just want you to repeat the Facebook name again. What's the Facebook name of the group?
Oh, yes. Media Max Out, MEDIA, Max, MAX, Out, OUT. But you can also go to Christine Haas, and that's CHRISTINE, HAA as an apple, S as in Sam, and then I think I can add you.
Awesome. I love that. So I answered that one. Good. Let me see if I missed any other questions before we go to the next. Awesome. All right. So you dropped a lot of stuff. And let's say that I don't want to do this, but I want to leverage your talents, right? And I want to see how you can help me out directly instead of me doing all of the legwork. Do you do that as well?
Right. We do, yes. I have 2 contract workers that help me out on a consistent basis each month. I have a boutique media company that I absolutely love. We take about 6 to 10 clients a month. And what we do is exactly what you said, from all walks of life. I have some, like, for example, I used to work for a digital marketer and did the media for Ryan Dice and Roland Frazier and War Room and that group. So awesome. I have that. And then I have folks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I learned so much from Ryan and from that gang over there about digital marketing. But lawyers, real estate agents, some of the real estate agents that I've worked with already, Long Doan and Mike Bernier, they were fantastic in Minneapolis. And my job really, when you do this on a short term, I always suggest short-term basis. It really depends on what your goals are. But I would say if I usually can get my job done where I get you in the media for 2 or 3 months or so, we get you a big splash. And I always say my job at that point most likely is done. A lot of people will say, PR firms will say, oh, we're going to do a year contract. It really doesn't serve the entrepreneur that well, in my opinion, when it comes to cost effectiveness. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I understand that, retainers can be expensive and you want to see an ROI off of things. And so when you're a realtor or you're a lawyer or whomever you really are, if you look at it and you start pushing out the appearances that you've had on your social media, nobody's checking to see the date of when you were on TV. So as long as you're not throwing out the same interview time and time again, if you circulate 3 to 6 interviews or media mentions that you've had after you've already gone through maybe 3 months with my group, then you have a lot to carry you for the next year or 2, because nobody's checking, oh, that was July. Unless there's a Christmas tree behind you, you don't know it was in December. So you want to have something that's generic that you can push out to improve your credibility, get a few big splashes, get some media mentions in Forbes or Entrepreneur, get those icons on your logos on your website or your social media, get that done, and then be done with media for a little while, and then go off to your next thing using that credibility. I don't want to talk myself out of business, because there's some people who might say, well, I'm launching another office in another state. Can you help me there? Absolutely, would love to. But I want to also mention that I'm just a realist. You can use 3 to 4 great appearances and that will live on for quite a while. And I say that to people who are trying to get their own media too. That's why I'm developing this course. They can't afford the retainer that I really want them to invest in. And so they need something maybe at a lower level and they want to start getting some media. So that's why I developed the course, so they can do some of that little bit, that snowball, get that building for them on their own. And then maybe the leads will come in and then they'll come to me when they decide that they don't want to do that so much on their own energy.
All right. That's awesome. So let's say we do hire you, right? And like Mike and Long out of Minnesota, let's say we do hire you and we say, well, help us out. We want to do more on the print side, or we want to do more on the TV side. Can we decide, or do you just take us on and you do your thing? How does this work?
It really depends on your goals. So once you're onboarded, we talk about this, and it's something that I also talk about in the course as well. So you don't necessarily have to hire me to understand how, which media outlet to go after. The biggest thing is to understand who you're going after as a customer. What is your demographic, your ideal demographic? If you're looking for millennials in a certain pocket area, where are they and where are those people living? It's kind of like TikTok. TikTok is blown up, right? But the average user is 12 to 16 years old. So you have to understand, you're going for a younger generation there. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't focus and start building your own with a business hashtag and start getting a presence there, but you have your hands up.
Yeah, I have a question right in between. You're right about the demographics. So let's say for real estate, I get a listing that's in my area or in your area, wherever it's considered luxury. And I want to do some PR behind it. So I contact your organization. Is that something that you can do for a specific listing?
So it depends. Here's how I would work on that. And most people would say no, but there's some backstory. This is the theory about what I would do on that. If you came to me and said, I have a $1 million listing and I can't move it, and I really want to figure out a way to get it some exposure. Now, knowing that I've worked with real estate quite a bit in the past, I would, number one, ask you, is the owner okay with having media in that house? Because I do know that sometimes the higher level luxury listings, those owners are very private and don't like having a lot of attention or cameras in the house. So that would be the first question. If you say yes, that's okay, they're happy, they just want to get it sold, say, okay, good. So then I would draw upon, okay, let's find a local news story. It's back to the B-roll question. Let's find a local news story that really resonates. Maybe it's housing prices are surging, or in my area, 78701, for example, in Austin, Texas, was named the #1 most expensive zip code in the state of Texas. So I'd look for stories that resonate like that would allow the opportunity to pitch a story at a high level. Then you pitch the story, and it may not necessarily, you don't ever want it to be about the house, because then they'd say, well, the reporter would say, well, go buy an ad. So what I'm doing is I'm formulating a news story or a process here, and then I'm pitching the story, and it just so happens the B-roll and the walkthrough is at your listing that you're trying to pitch. So that is the kind of the backdoor way to get you media exposure for a story that would normally be, oh, go buy an ad. I would get you an opportunity to get that visually out there to the city.
And how do you find the trending topics on a specific city or area or?
Sure. Well, that's our job. I was in the news for all those years, so I keep looking at it. Now, if you're at home and you're wondering, how do I do that? You really have to subscribe to everything you can news-wise in your community or statewide, internationally even. There's always news stories out there that pertain to you. My goodness, even the stock market or gold is surging. That's the news today, right? Gold, and that's just a sign of what's happening in the economy right now. There's always an angle that you can pitch, okay, so what can I do to get my name in there? But you want to have news alerts out there for real estate. Google News alerts are really helpful if you set those for real estate in your city. Look for the news stations, find the call letters of the news stations. If you're wanting to do TV in your community, look for those call letters and put those alerts out there on your Google alerts. So always have a way to be cognizant. Now, a lot of people are, that's why they come to me. A lot of people are at the level and like, oh my God, that's too much work. I need to focus on my business. You go do that, and I'm happy to do that because that's my business. But there are people out there who will say, okay, I can do this. I can, figure out how to handle it until I get get more leads coming in. But for example, I will tell you, I have a testimonial to share I was super excited about. There's a lady here in Austin, Texas, who hired me because she's doing eloping type of business where it's basically you can jump in a limo, go get married at a great landscape in Austin, Texas, and you can even jump out of a plane, all these different environments. So she came to me, long story short, and said, you know, I've got this great platform. I want to franchise it. Not many people know about this. We're only 2 in the country doing this. Can we get some media? I was like, yeah, this will be a lot of fun. So on her second news story, she texted me the morning after, and she said she got, I think it was 11 or 13 new weddings just from one news story.
Wow.
So my point is that, you know, there are different, you don't want to always say, okay, my hand's out, you know, the story just aired, where's my leads? But it does resonate for so many people. I mean, sometimes it takes a little while to get your name out there. I've had lawyers as clients who have cut their ad spend on TV significantly because they're on TV as an expert for free. You know, and so they become more of a household name in their community. And that's what I always try to do for realtors, is to get their name out there consistently. And you want to brand yourself right. You want to know, okay, well, you know, if I'm a downtown person and I'm selling condos, I want to be known as that. I don't want to be known as the person selling, you know, just any house. But you want to make sure that that resource is available for the B-roll. Going back to your question about how do I get that particular listing on TV? Not about the listing, it's about the B-roll that you provide in the actual news story that you suggest.
So all I'm hearing is it's all about the story. Right?
It is always, it is about the story, yeah. And you think about it yourself. Like if you're a reporter and you read this pitch, does this sound like it should go to the sales department or should it go to the news department? That's really at the end of the day how you want to pitch your story.
That's so good. It's so simple. Where do you want to go? Those two.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And if you're going to the sales department, it's not going to happen. They're going to send you to the sales department. If you're going to the news department, you have to add, you know, a quality of education, and then you also get the expert status along the way, and it's free.
I love that. And a lot of people think, well, how is this going to get me? How is this going to get me business? So we've seen it firsthand.
Yes.
Where I think that's the wrong question to start with. The right question is, are you in it for the long game, right? Because what
Yes.
this creates, this starts creating a brand out of you, out of your company.
Yes.
So
That's
this
right.
is a much longer play. That's what I love about branding and PR. That's why we've done it in the past. Now, Christine, we've never used your company as a PR company. We actually, as lab coat agents, we stopped using a PR company right before you and I started talking. Like we had a PR company.
Yeah, I remember you told me.
Yeah. And I wasn't really happy with them. So I've always been a little shy pulling the trigger after, because we were promised like, oh, you're going to go into these magazines and this, and then we're going to try to get you some TV outlets. And it didn't happen. I'm going to go back to the question that I asked you, and I interrupted you, so you didn't finish. So my bad. That was, if we were to hire you, or any agency or person is hiring you, what should we expect from you? Is it more you tell us what's going to happen, or do we guide you and say we want more print or more actual media TV type thing?
You know, it really, as I mentioned earlier, it really comes down to your goals. It would be our job to sit down and say, okay, who's your ideal customer or client? And so from there, we would formulate a plan. You know, obviously we deal with different types of clients who have different needs. There are some who are authors, for example, and they only want to get into podcasts and they only want specific media for their own niche. You have to really go along with, at the end of the day, who's going to buy or absorb the content that you're going after. So it would be our job to sit down and say, okay, what are your goals? Who's your ideal client? Who are you trying to talk to, and what is your end game, you know, so to speak. So to answer that briefly, it would be just our job. Now, there are some who want to be very involved and really want to go through all the outlets and say, you know what, I want this magazine, I want that magazine, I want this, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be Forbes. And our job is to really let them know if that's even tangible. I have heard many people, as you might imagine, who have had experiences just as you've said, I heard one person, for example, in War Room, who spent $100,000 in a year on PR for his company, and he said he didn't get one single placement.
That sounds like us.
I mean, I know. I mean, and I hate to say it, but so many times that happens. And here's why I built my business the way I did. I'm a former journalist, and when I was in TV, I would be hired by some of the bigger PR firms to come in and help them understand why they weren't getting coverage for their clients. The only reason why I felt really positive about the transition that I could do this type of leap straight from media into PR and publicity, for example, was because I knew where the others were weak. I knew these PR firms who had never been in newsrooms or never been in magazines. They didn't know how the media works. And so they would ask such basic questions, and I'd see such basic mistakes. And these folks had master's degrees in PR. And so there's a difference between, in my opinion, there's a difference between PR and publicity and media placement. So, for example, there's a big PR firm in Austin, Texas, and they are even doing work with the White House right now. They bring me on to do their placement for TV and publicity because they know great messaging. They're fantastic in that area. You've got a crisis, we're going to figure out how to manage it. But they're not really strong at getting people on TV or getting into the media. So that's the problem, in my opinion, is you have a lot of PR firms who will come in there and say, oh, we can get you on TV, but they really don't have those talents. Their talents are more geared towards messaging, maybe branding, maybe, like overall image type of stuff, as opposed to getting me on Fox News. So there's kind of two different things there.
That's exactly what happened to us. I mean, we were paying $5,000 a month, and we didn't get a $5,000 a month worth of PR, which sucked.
Right.
So we were burned pretty badly. Now, a couple of questions out there, and I'm going to ask two together because they kind of have to do with each other. Number one is, how much do you charge? And number two is, can you give us an example of a couple of amazing successes that you've had with clients?
Sure, absolutely. So fees, my monthly retainer really, and my phone is twisting again. There we go. My monthly retainer really is specific to the goals. So for example, if you're a local person and you just want to get into one local city and you want to invade the TV, radio, newspaper in that city, that's going to cost a little bit less than if I'm doing a national reach for you. If I'm trying to get you in podcasts, if I'm trying to get you in LA, if you're traveling a lot, those types of things come into it. So I don't want to, navigate away completely from the question, but it really can range from $3,000 to maybe $4,500, $5,000 at a maximum type thing.
So
let's say that's a range, a good range.
All right. So let's say local, it's probably around 3, and more national, it's around 5, somewhere, and then somewhere in between.
Yeah, just really depends.
All right, cool.
Exactly.
Really good perspective. And then tell me about two awesome
success stories.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yes. So I will say, I mean, I've had some great testimonials from clients, but the hands-on type of testimonials that I've really appreciated. I had an attorney, as I mentioned, that I worked with for about a year or so, and he was spending at least $35,000 a month on TV advertising. And so, for attorneys, personal injury attorneys, that's not a lot. I mean, that's common for them because they're spending that, or they're doing billboards or something like that. He was able, after 6 months of working with me and being on TV almost once a week, he was able to reduce that in half, and he was just completely shut down advertising in 2 stations. So he was able to really just use that. In fact, there was one day I was driving my son to school, and I was listening to the morning talk show. And you know how morning talk shows are so popular. And then they were talking about a news story, and they brought up his name, and they said, you better call his name, because I saw him last night on the news. And I was like, his name is becoming so commonplace that now the morning talk show knows his name, and it's not from the ad spend, but from the fact that he was on TV so much. And so that was kind of exciting for me to see that. Yeah. Another one that I mentioned, the wedding location that I just brought up, she was able to book 11 weddings, just from one TV appearance. And so that made me, I get a text message and said, she said, I wonder how that happened, wink, wink. And so I was so excited to see that really translates for people. Now, I don't want to make it out. I mean, you always have to see the fine print. It doesn't mean that just because you're on TV, you're going to make a ton of money. It really depends on what your goals are. If you're going to be out there to just build your brand, if you're going to be out there to get your name recognized more often, it may take time for that to build. So I don't want to promise that media is everything, but it certainly does help. I always talk about this too from the effect of a doctor or a plastic surgeon. So it seems when you watch an interview from a doctor on CNN or MSNBC or whatever, that they know everything about that subject matter and they're the go-to god, so to speak, of that area. Maybe it's an orthopedic surgeon or a plastic surgeon or whatever. The media does not go through, and I hate to say this, but they don't go through and look for their malpractice lawsuits. They don't go through and look to see how many surgeries they do every year. They don't go through the complications. At the end of the day, all they do is find somebody who is well-spoken and can meet the deadline and has a decent credibility online. So it seems like a perceived endorsement. The media endorses you and it looks like all of a sudden, you are the god or the go-to person to go to, but that does not necessarily mean that they're the most qualified. Gloria Allred is a perfect example as an attorney. She built her entire brand. And I mean, everybody knows her and sees her face immediately popping up on CNN or Fox anytime something controversial comes up. She built her brand through the media. Does that mean in the beginning that she was more qualified than the others? No, she knew the power of marketing and she knew the power of publicity. And she built her brand off of that. And now she's the person that anytime there's a celebrity that has anything going on, Gloria Allred is right there with a press conference. So you just know that the power works there. But I just don't want to overpromise. At the same time, I also want to point out the fact that long-term publicity or marketing certainly does build a brand.
So why do you only suggest that we go with you for, let's say, 3 to 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, not forever?
Yes. No, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I would love for somebody to continue with me for long term, but I know budgets and I understand that you're trying to build a brand. It depends on who you are and what your company is about. I have 2 clients that have been with me now for over a year, and it's because there's specific needs that they have me for that work for that company, and they're bigger. They have bigger budgets. But then there are those folks that are just building their brand. You say, oh my God, you want me to invest $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month when I'm barely, making ends meet or making my payments to my employees? I can't do this long term. I just want to use that as an example of the power of the snowball. So say, for example, you're on TV and next month and I help you on the second month and you follow my directions. I always am very clear with the clients. If you're on TV, you want to send a follow-up note and a thank you, even cookies, whatever it might be, to that reporter, and you get that person's cell phone. Now, I'm totally talking myself out of business right here, and this is not something I should do, but I will say it. For example, Longdone, when he was in Minneapolis, he got the contact information for the reporters when he worked with them in Minneapolis. So he can easily go and contact that reporter and follow my advice in 2 months down the road and say, hey, it's springtime. I got a new story. He doesn't need me anymore. He's just got the contact of the person that he worked well with. So I shouldn't say that out loud, but it's easy to just also be able to use it.
To be fair,
you know how it is. You build networks.
Yeah, but to be fair to you, Christine, we have those numbers, but we're also so busy doing everything else. That's going to fall through the cracks. So we need people like you to remind us and help us. So I think what you offer is super valuable. And now, we've talked about the video side of it, and you also mentioned, is it HARO? Is that how you pronounce it? HARO?
Yes.
HARO, and you said it stands for Help a Reporter Out. The very first time I heard you
Google,
speak, that was an awesome site that I went to, and when I went in there, I remember being able to sign up for certain keywords. Is that what it was?
Yep.
And so,
you can look for stories filter. Yep.
So what would you recommend a real estate agent do when they go there? How would you say they plan this out, just for Harrow?
So it really is a step-by-step guide. If you go on there, just subscribe, and it's free. You can get, I think that there is an advanced one where you can get specific information. I'm not sure about that, but just go on that website, list your email, and then as soon as you get that email subscription, it'll send you a sample of the day. And I'm telling you, there are at least 50 different reporters, writers, you name it, podcasts, looking for specific type of people to interview. So, for example, if I'm a news reporter in Houston, Texas, and I'm doing a story on, I don't know, flu season, and I'm looking for a doctor to talk about, this, and I can't find anybody on my deadline, I go to help a reporter out. I post my deadline of maybe I know I'm going to do the story in 2 days. So I want to know who I've got on tap to interview. So I post a little description there of I'm doing a story on cold and flu season, want to know what the trends are in the Houston community. They don't necessarily have to list the outlet name. So they might just say anonymous, but it'll say major TV market. Then, give me contact information if you're available at this time, or if it's an online outlet, please answer these 3 questions and submit it to me by 4 p.m. Central. And that's easy. I mean, that's super easy. You answer the question, just like you would on Facebook for somebody else, you submit it, and then all of a sudden you find out that you've been published or you've been quoted in the Houston Chronicle. So it's very, very simple. There is another website I want to mention too that I spoke about when you heard me speak. It's called newsblues.com. And that's NEWSBLUES.com, newsblues.com. And that is really kind of like an online site for journalists where, you know how it is, you have industry chatter about what's happening in markets and who's getting hired or fired and who's having children and that type of stuff, or what news director is in trouble, whatever it might be. Oh. It's kind of a fun site to go on because you go, oh my God, I can find out what all the gossip is in TV or media.
I feel like I could be there all day now.
It is. I mean, I've been on the media for 5 years and I still check it every day just to find out what's going on. But I think it's like $7 or $8 or something like that. It's not expensive to subscribe. But it's really good for entrepreneurs because there's a place that's called the Job Bank or Markets. There's different spots on the catalog there on the menu. And if you look for markets, you click on that, it'll give you every news station in a city, the contact information for the news desk, the name of the news director, name of the assignment manager, email addresses. So I go back to Cision. That's the subscription, very expensive subscription that I use consistently for, leads and putting out emails for my clients. It gives emails to all of the different reporters. Sometimes it's hard to come by. So if you go to newsblues.com and you hit markets, it'll give you a general email address for those stations. So it kind of makes your job easier as you're hunting for the right combination of, emails to send or pitches to send. But again, I love NewsBlues because it also will give you a list of the market size. So for example, if you're sitting in Asheville, North Carolina, and you're going, I wonder what size market this is, how big of a media market is. It goes 1 through 210 right now. It'll list what the biggest markets are, so you know what your goals would be and what's around you that might be a good resource for your media market.
Awesome. All right, question then. Would you ever suggest, we've got 7 minutes, so I'm going to ask a few rapid questions.
Yeah.
Number one, would you ever suggest that we look at newspapers like I have the LA Times here or the Wall Street Journal, look to see who is writing the pieces, and they usually give their email address, right? Would you ever suggest that I just reach out to them directly?
Absolutely. Always. Reporters, yes. If you're looking for reporters or writers, reach out directly with them. The best way, and I covered this in the course that I'm launching, I give sample pitches. The best way to contact them individually is acknowledge a story that they've already done, make a comment about it, typically a compliment. Say, for example, if it's a real estate reporter in your local community, maybe it's LA Times, you see a story that they did about retail dying or something like that, contact them and say, I just read your story 2 days ago on LA's retail crisis, and I wanted to let you know that I totally agree, or I thought you did a great job. Side note for you, as you look for future stories in real estate, I also wanted to tell you about X, Y, and Z happening from my perspective. I own this company, and I would love to be a resource for you in the future. I have great statistics. You see where I'm going here. You want to compliment, you want to acknowledge their story, understand that you know what they do. The biggest problem that I would get, even from some of the bigger PR firms, is I'd get emails, you know, pitching stories or something in another part of the country. My last station was in San Diego, California, and I would get a pitch from somebody in Albany, New York. It's like, he's available for TV interview. It's like, on what planet? You know, I mean, are you people crazy? But they're just doing blast emails, and they don't care because they're trying to show their clients that they sent, you know, 10,000 emails in a month and say, well, I've contacted all these reporters. I don't know why they didn't take a bite. I wonder why. But my point is that no, yes, it probably was. I saw it all too often. Or my favorite was, they would email me with my predecessor's name, like, thank you. You know, it's like, if that person has not been the news anchor at this station for 4 years, can you at least do your homework and figure out who you're emailing? But I could go off on that all day long. But my point in saying all that is, know who you're contacting. Acknowledge the work that they've done. You don't want to talk to a feature reporter about an incident of crime that you're seeing in your area. So you want to know and acknowledge that they're the right person and let them know that you've done your homework.
Awesome. And the next question, you talked earlier about guest posting. And
yes,
with guest posting, let's say I want to grab, does that apply also to magazines or just newspapers?
Yes. No, it's magazines too. There's so many outlets out there, blogs, even big blogs, that type of thing. I go through this with my course. I give you a whole different idea of like where to go and what to find. But there are so many different outlets. All you have to do, honestly, I mean, it's an easy cheat sheet. Just go to Google and put guest post media outlet if you want to do magazines, and it'll give you a list of all the magazines that offer it. Blogs, for example, it will also give you different blogs that have that opportunity. The big key to guest posting, in my opinion, and what I've seen from my clients, is the fact that you want to make sure that the submission process is followed to a T. So they may say, in order to be considered, you have to write 2 sentences about what your article would be about. So for example, if it was Inc.com or something like that, they'd say, you know, we just want to see 2 sentences about the topic. You don't want, in that case, to send your entire article, because they'll be like, I'm not reading all this, you know. So just think about it from the other side of person, you know. You don't honestly, at the end of the day, mobile, social media, whatever it is, our whole lives, favor, however you look at it, everybody's trying to make our lives more convenient. Think about that when you're pitching the media. Nobody wants more work. Don't give them more work. Do the job for them, and you get far more results that way. So make sure you follow it to a T. If they say, I want to see the whole article, then submit it. If they say, I want to see the whole article and your website, and you don't have a website, don't do it. Well, I mean, you could try it, but you know what I mean? Like, make sure you do homework. I also go through in the course about how to have a media bio page that's all ready. You want to have some type of publicity, headshots done, that type of thing, because sometimes these submission processes require you to have headshots available, your website, your social media handles, all those things. And honestly, it's for the best, because you want to have your best face forward, but it also discourages the people who are just like, okay, well, I'm just going to try to answer this and I have no presence online.
If we were to hire you, would you create that media page?
Press
or
kit.
what would you call that?
Yes.
Is it a press kit?
Yes, it's a media kit or a press kit. Yes, we do the legwork on it. Of course, if you have to have graphic design, that might be a little bit extra, depending on what you're looking for. But we do the content and the formation and get all that packaged for you, which goes a long way, because that always looks really good, even when you're sending it out to future clients.
I love that. All right, Christine. So you're going to come up with a course in the next week or 2. So let's have you back on, and we can go over what you offer in that course. And I'm sure you can give us a little peek into it as well. Anything you want to close with?
Yes. Really, at the end of the day, I just want to close with the idea that media is really about the power of perception, you know, and so it is so easy when you're scrolling through TV channels or even your social media, and then you see your competitors and you think, There's so many people out there like me. How do I stand out? And I shouldn't say the only way, but there's so many ways of, being like Tai Lopez and spending millions on advertising and getting in front of everybody consistently, right? That costs a lot of money. The power of the media is the fact that it gives you credibility, but it's free. It does take legwork, or you hire someone like me, but think about the retainer of paying someone like me to get some solid news stories out there that can live on forever, that are really good publicity versus media ad spend. I mean, we see Facebook ads, and it's like the amount that they make money, the amount of money that we spend on those ads every month is just tough to swallow, and some resonate, some translate, some don't convert, and then you just feel like you flush that down the toilet. So what I love about media is the fact that regardless of when you do it, it's always there. It enhances your credibility, and it is always something that you can put out there next year, 5 years from now. Put it in your bio. It's when you're speaking on stage, whenever you get to that point, you could say, I was mentioned on NBC or interviewed 3 times. It's just something that always enhances your credibility. It doesn't flush down the toilet like Facebook ads.
Very, very good point. Is there a best way to contact you if people are interested? Your phone number, email address, or through your website?
Sure. And my cell phone is probably the best way. I live off of that because of the pitching that I do. So my cell phone is 512-751-1592. 512-751-1592. And I know you have my website, christinehaas.com.
I'll put up
but
your
texting is so good. Yeah, that'd be great.
Put up your cell phone number. And again, thank you so much. One thing that comes to mind every time I talk to you, it's something that I told my wife way back in college, and that's that perception is reality, and what you do is exactly that. So props to you. You do amazing things, and we'll have you back on in about a week and a half or so.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love it. So that way we can talk about how that course can help your folks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.